Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. In some of my videos I mentioned the fact that I think that Ukraine was very much armed by the United States of America before the Russian invasion, and that did not occur in 2021 or 2020, so everything got closer to a confrontation between Russia and United States of America on the territory of Ukraine. And I made some statements that I think that actually the United States of America pumped so much weaponry in Ukraine that it was alarming. I did not have the evidence. I had only statements from the Russian part, obviously, and from other countries that are really the adversaries of United States of America. Little by little, and using logic and now more and more evidence coming up, I realized that actually United States pumped a lot of weapons into Ukraine, preparing it for something, and something that was not that, how should I put it, maybe obvious, but nevertheless, it doesn't matter the reason. The fact is, Ukraine was armed to teeth before the Russians did what they did. Military special operation, invasion, however you want to call it. Now let's go and see what did we find, what were the, let's say, the logical conclusions. The logical conclusion was that Ukraine was not blown up in the first 1 week when the Russians invaded. Okay, that was the first clue, like, really? So Russia is not capable of just mowing Ukraine down. That was the first, and then the first clue. And then you realize that things even dragged like longer and longer, and you wonder how in the hell. That was before any so-called deliveries of American weapons and other NATO members' weapons started pouring in Ukraine, and they were not a lot. So since February 24th until, I don't know, let's say today, which is what, the 29th, 28th of November 2022, United States delivered about 20 some HIMARS, high precision missile systems, blah blah blah. Okay, when the Americans started delivering the first ones, it was about, I don't know, 6 months ago, 5 months ago, and immediately after they delivered about 4, and then another 4 or something. Somehow we are to believe that the whole war changed, the whole balance of power changed, and Ukraine was able to push and stop the Russians right there in their tracks. I didn't believe that, because I know that with 4 HIMARS you don't stop the Russian might, however you want to take it. There didn't sound right. And then I said, well, 4 of them could stop the Russians. I don't believe it. And then 4, 8, and then blah blah until they got to about 18. And this article that I have here on my phone, ready to discuss it with you, shows that they have more than 20 as of today. Now that was one clue. And I said, it's kind of like these guys were saying, well, no, those HIMARS changed the whole course. I didn't believe that a bit. If you just have a little bit of intelligence and knowledge about certain things, you don't have to go too deep to realize that 20 HIMARS will not change the course of a war against Russia. But anyway, weasels and below 86 IQ people will gladly believe it because they don't know anything and don't have the knowledge and they don't have the brains. Now let's move on. Another clue that I got was when Poland ordered HIMARS systems from United States. And I said, okay, how many would they order? You know what I mean? They're afraid of Russia. So I was thinking, okay, they will keep Russia away. So they're afraid, they're arming. Okay, makes sense. They didn't order, let's say, 20, which obviously changed the whole course of the war, according to the Western media, only delivering about 8. So I said, well, maybe they will order about 50, No, they did 10 times 50, 500. So Poland ordered 500 HIMARS, and I was thinking, how is that possible when the Ukrainians supposedly with about 8 or 12 at that time when I found out the Poles ordered 500, with about 12 they're able to push the Russians back and blow them up with 12. Why would you order 500? So it didn't make sense at all. And I said, okay, maybe these guys are lying that the Ukrainians have only 12. What could be? Maybe they had before. I said, well, maybe they had before. Before they told us that they're going to deliver 8 or 4 or so on. The Poles were delivered more in between 2000 whatever, 14, 15 to 2022. The Americans delivered more than the 8 that they told us. Oh, now in May, what was it, May or June, we delivered the first batch. And everything changed. I don't think so. I think they got out what they already had in the field then, you know. Okay, that was a logical interpretation of certain kind of facts. The other one was there were some statements. The statements came from the Russians, obviously, and they said, well, NATO is arming it, is arming Ukraine, and that's why they were talking about the demilitarization of Ukraine. I said, what demilitarization? That's a poor bullshit, military economic country. It doesn't have shit. It should be like just like this. With its corruption and lack of economic power, how can you have a good military or strong military? You can't, because you can't buy the weapons, the volume, and the quality. How are you gonna pay? With borrowing, that goes to a certain extent. They will lend you money if you can pay it back. If you have a shitty economy and a corrupt government, nobody will give you anything because they're afraid they're going to lose the money. So I said, well, what can that be? Well, it seems like the Russians were right. Why? Because the Americans delivered to Ukraine a lot of weapons. And it seems like the Americans did not deliver to other countries that ordered certain kind of weapons. They said, okay, we're going to send it. And everything that was supposed to be sent, for instance, to Taiwan in this case, was sent to Ukraine since 2015. So since 2015, the Americans, instead of sending weapons to Taiwan, sent to Ukraine. About, I don't know, like I have here the numbers, about $15 billion worth of weapons. 15 billion or so. So that was another thing when the Russians said, yeah, okay, but they have an interest to, overemphasize it. A few days ago, I read an article where Poroshenko, the former president of Ukraine, I think it was from 2015 to 2020 or something like this, or 2019, before this clown came on. This Poroshenko said that he signed the Minsk agreements, the two Minsk agreements in 2014, 2015, just to buy time so they can arm Ukraine with the help of the United States and the NATO countries. So that was another, oh yeah, okay. So the Russians were right when they said that these guys are armed. And Poroshenko as well said that they, that's what he said, turned the Ukrainian army as being the biggest, the greatest, the most prepared, the best prepared army in Eastern Europe. Well, I don't know if that was true, but it seems like the Russian forces are incapable of doing more than stabilizing the front, and here and there a little bit of you advance, I advance, we go back, you go home. So this is the evidence that I had so far. Now I have this article about Taiwan, and this is the whole thing where it said this is how some weapons were rerouted from Taiwan. Instead of going towards Taiwan, they went to Ukraine. So let's see how many. So this article obviously comes from Sputnik, but it's taken from other media outlets. Obviously, they did not investigate it on their own. So this article comes from today, the 28th of November 2022. And this is what it says. How did US weapons ordered by Taiwan wind up in Ukraine? It's been revealed that weapons ordered by Taiwan from the US as far back as 2015 haven't been delivered, with the backlog growing from $14 billion in late 2021 to $18.7 billion now. So instead of being sent to Taiwan, they were sent to Ukraine worth of $14 billion in late 2021. So by then, Ukraine got at least $14 billion backlog that was supposed to be given to Taiwan, only to Taiwan. was given to Ukraine. Now look how much, if you remember how much is American military complexes, the budget is military United States is about $800 billion a year. 800. I think Russia right now is about 65, 70, around that. I think no more than 80 billion. I think they just upped it this year. It's about 60 some or 70. Now imagine that the Ukrainians got so far about I don't know, 30, 25, 30 billion dollars just this year for their budget from outside. Not the budget, the military, the weapons and all that. That's half of the Russian budget for the whole year. So if they continue like this, they will have the same just for the year. I don't know how much they had before. So Taipei says some arms meant for Taiwan have been delivered to Ukraine instead. How could such a mix-up occur? What kinds of arms has the US promised? Despite pretentious pledges by Washington to help defend Taiwan against possible Chinese aggression and claims that Beijing could be preparing to invade the East Island as soon as next year, US weapons makers have fallen woefully behind in making good on their promise to help turn the island into an anti-China porcupine. Anyway, it says here, on Sunday, US media reported that the backlog on US weapons delivered to Taipei has jumped by over 25% over the past year alone, raising by nearly $5 billion in 1 year's time, at the time that the US military-industrial complex continues to take on orders which could take years to fulfill. Citing one example, the report pointed out that some 400 plus Javelin, anti-tank and Stinger surface-to-air missiles orders in late 2015 have yet to arrive, some 7 years on. It says here that the United States has sold Taiwan tens of billions of dollars worth of military hardware since the late 1970s. Between 2000 and 2016 alone, US defense companies penned contracts with Taiwan worth nearly $32 billion in inflation unadjusted dollars. Orders hit $18.33 billion in the 4 year of the Trump presidency alone, and included 66 new F-16 fighter jets, 108 Abrams main battle tanks, 11 HIMARS launchers, 11, and remember, in 4 years, and remember, the Poles asked for 500, and 4 MQ-9 radar drones. They also include an array of advanced missile weaponry, including air-launched HARMS missiles, SLAM-ER, standoff ground attack missiles, ship-based RIM-66 surface-to-air missiles, Mk-48 torpedoes, and AGM-154 joint standoff weapons glide bombs. In 22 plus months that Joe Biden has been president, his administration has pledged to sell another $2.2 billion in weapons to Taipei. And it tells you here whatever they wanted to send these guys. And US media now estimates the total size of the backlog have hit $18.7 billion. So 18.7 billion they didn't deliver to Taiwan yet. Maybe they will one day, right? After they take care of these guys. Now, other weapons meant for Taiwan may have also wound up in Ukraine instead, ranging from Javelin to Stinger missiles. Washington and its allies have sent thousands to Kiev, to HIMARS, and US have delivered at least 26 HIMARS of the precision artillery systems to Ukraine, with the Russian military saying destroyed at least 10 of them to date. So as of now, the Americans said that they delivered at least 26 HIMARS to Ukraine since, I don't know, 5 months ago, and Russians say, well, we destroyed at least 10. I don't know how many they destroyed, but anyway. Even before the escalation of the Ukraine crisis, Washington has excuses for the failure to deliver weapons to Taiwan on time. Lockheed Martin has explained, for example, that 66 F-16 jets Taiwan bought for $8 billion in 2019 faced production delays thanks to COVID and supply chain issues. So there's a lot of weapons that seem to end being rerouted to Ukraine, and I become very much inclined to think that to come to the conclusion that actually the United States indeed weaponized Ukraine big time right after the overthrow of the, what was that, Yakashenko, whatever his name is right now, regime, or a legitimate government, because it was democratically elected through democratic votes. So this is it. I think that Ukraine was armed big time, big time in all these years, and I don't think the Russians are just talking because they are losing or something. I gave you so many examples, logical, statement-based, and this at least with numbers. Well, it's true that this doesn't prove 100%, but I think I'm 99% certain that this occurred. I mean, even if it's not the extent that this guy say that, oh, the $18 billion that it's a backlog on Taiwan, all those weapons, 18 point whatever billion dollars were transferred to Ukraine. I don't know, there might be some production problems as well where they couldn't transfer. But the fact is, I think the Ukrainians got much more than we thought, and they will probably will know. Maybe we'll find out in about 20 years, they will tell us the extent, and we'll be like, shit, this is like Hitler when he invaded Stalin, or Germany invaded Soviet Union. They expected a certain kind of number of people. They made the maximum estimations, and then when they got on the field, they got, what the hell is going on? I think they missed it by, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. So let's say they expected those guys to have, I don't know, 5 million, and then they have like 20 or something, just like, pff, and many other weapons. But anyway, that's the way it is. I think this is the reverse. Russia and United States, because it's not Ukraine. Ukraine is just a territory and the people who die for other people's interests. And they think they die for the country and therefore for their nation, killing the evil Russians that they don't like. Anyway, thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.